June 6th. You found my secret hideout. Great. Grab a coffee and let's get smarter together. I thought I was done with the story about the Garden of Eden. But how could I without looking at Eve's role? So let's turn this into a triptych. Not to repeat myself, but when you begin to think in standards, the Highlander rule kicks in. There can only ever be one model that fits the standard perfectly. Humans, however, come on a male to female spectrum. According to the Highlander rule, a spectrum isn't an option. One point on the spectrum had to be declared the standard. But why fell the choice on the far male side of the spectrum? The easy answer would be Uber explorers were predominantly male, very male, and they had the violence on their side to make the choice. But I think the woman took always the lead in the story, even before the spin came in, when it came to reaching for the fruit, standing in for the female aspect of all things. That's why any and all women had to be declared untrustworthy, the moment exploration was declared to be the original sin. Untrustworthy. Observation taught us humans that we could switch our perspective on things and situations with the help of triggers, sensations of all kinds. Take bad smell. Bad smell causes even a progressive to think more conservative. Two frames that usually inhibit each other, meaning you can't compute, you can't even notice progressive facts with a conservative mindset, nor can you compute conservative facts with a progressive mindset. But triggers will kick you out of one mindset and open a new perspective. And even every new perspective opens the door to otherwise unthinkable solutions. Helpful, right? The ideal is that we happen up in triggers randomly. And since we are working together as a large network, someone in the network will always stumble up in what is needed. Perfectly what is needed. The find then is shared to an extent that all members of a network can securely continue the exploration. But the ideal isn't always working out. The network could have become too small to offset the risk for the individual to explore, or there could be interruptions in the network due to a member with a newly found sense of power or members who are hungry. Both a sense of power and hunger impede mirroring and lose the ability to cooperate toward bigger goals that include others. For moments like these, humans wanted to have tried and tested triggers at hand of which they had an inkling in which direction they might take them. They still wanted to become aware of things somewhat reliable that they had perceived but that weren't included in the current model of the world itself. To problem solve. That's how we problem solve. Take different perspectives until we find the solution. Take the example of sounds that became ultimately letters in alphabets. But before that happened, before signs were created, each sound was attributed a way how it would transform the generation process of a model of the world and self in a person when chanted. Chanting creates vibrations, and the vibrations influence the nerves. The Kabbalah tried to recreate the knowledge for the Hebrew alphabet, starting from the 12th century AD. But since exploration had been considered the original sin then already for almost 2 millennia, it became all a search for the one true will, the one perfect standard. Another example is herb lore. Herbs and spices with their often intense and distinctive tastes and aromas are perfect triggers. Well, the level of intensity of a sensation is always a sign for how well off a trigger something is, how far it throws us off our current state. That's why we have sensations, to recognize triggers that enable us to conduct more randomized searches despite time and metabolic restraints. So, herbs and spices like sounds were given attributes, describing in which directions they take us. And then humans did what humans always do. We grouped and categorized them, leading straight to the four humors theory when the idea prevailed that there's always one standard that spells perfection and for which everyone and everything must and will strive for. To feel unwell and be sick meant you consumed triggers and went exploring, and so the therapy started with the hypothesis that you had to consume the opposite triggers to return to the one world and one self God had meant for you. Male and female were also considered triggers and had attributes given to them. Everything male boosted concentration and focus, while everything female heightened awareness. When do we need to concentrate more? When we recall existing knowledge to execute it correctly. When we exploit. When do we need more awareness? When we want to notice everything around us, in particular the things we haven't been aware of before. When we explore. Uber explorers gave the story a spin to vilify exploring. The logic consequence was that they had to villainize everything that was considered related to exploring. Everything female. The women were guilty. They were guilty for heightening men's awareness and forcing them to notice things that weren't meant to be noticed by them. Therefore, the impact of women as a trigger on men had to be diminished. By separating them from men, banning them from public life, and where it wasn't possible, completely erasing their shapes, the veils and baggy clothes that they became unrecognizable as a trigger, as a woman, and blended into the background. But that didn't eliminate the problem that women inherently explored. They were born that way, so they had to be owned by men, what kept them from generating their own models of the world and self, and they had to be kept busy with standardized, exploiting, serving work. The thing is, though, we wouldn't survive if a generation of a model of a world and self wouldn't be a continuous process inside each of us, since we live in a complex, ever-changing system. Depriving ourselves of a trigger hunt only means that we have less diversity in the selection of the data we use in the ongoing process, what makes the process less random. It leads to a dopamine deficit that shows in health and mental health problems. It also significantly lowers what can be gained for the benefit of all, but it makes it more predictable where the gain will occur. Thus, it will be easier for the Uber explorers to siphon off the profits. It also eliminates the need for sharing to offset the risk of that exploring entails for the individual, meaning most of the profits can remain in the hands of a few. And that's why Uber explorers did it. Spun this particular story, painting exploring as an original sin and vilifying women. It is not natural. It is not healthy. Exploring is healthy, also known as thinking. Make a habit out of thinking. Let's turn thinking into a movement and restore women to the actual place as triggers for exploration. Like, comment, share and follow lest you miss a single opportunity to improve yourself and society. Once you do, we'll meet again at the coffee pot.